Welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Gauthier the ET Whisperer. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Any ideas expressed by the guest, myself, or commenters may not necessarily reflect the same opinions of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Enlightenment defined. It is the state of giving or receiving greater knowledge and understanding about a certain subject or situation. Evolution defined. The gradual development of something, especially from a simple to more complex form. So what is Enlightenment evolution? The state of giving and receiving greater knowledge as we develop from a simple to more complex human being living on Earth for our soul's experience. Welcome now and join us as we explore our Enlightenment Evolution Hour together. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is simulcast live every Wednesday at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific from the Enlightenment Evolution Hour page, Matrix Minds Facebook page, and the ET Whisperer YouTube channel. It is also redistributed from the Forbidden Knowledge News Network and Conscious Awakening Network. Hey, welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour, everyone. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, the ET Whisperer, and we are the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. Welcome back, everybody. As you guys just heard, we're here every Wednesday at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific, and tonight we have a very special guest, Oriah Mirza, and I'm going to be bringing her in just a few minutes, but as normal, to some of your delight and to some of your dismay, we have announcements, okay? So the first announcement is show announcements, and we've got a lovely lineup for our show. Next week, we have Art Geyser, who's going to be joining us live. The week after that, I will be in Sedona, but we will have a pre-recorded show. We're finally getting back around to old guests. You guys saw William Stowell here just a couple weeks ago, and we're going to be bringing back C.M. Kozeman. And for those of you who don't know who C.M. Kozeman he is a viral author to the book All Tomorrows, The Billion-Year Chronicles of the Myriad Species of Human Beings, which is an amazing science fiction. He's an evolutionist, and he's a lot of other things. He's a great guy, a very interesting guy. If you haven't seen his first show, I suggest highly to go listen to that. As C.M. Kozeman. After that, we will have David Chase, who also was on our show, but a long time ago. He is a UFO researcher. He is an ET artist, one of the original ET artists out there. His old artwork is through everything. And C.M. Kozeman actually talked about his art on his show. Amazing dude. He's going to be with us on the 27th. In October, we're going to have Ismael Perez on the 4th, and we will announce guests elsewhere. As for the network announcements, we have the Out There Talk with Valiant himself. That is going to be live tonight at 11:59 on Instagram Live. And if you guys are in the field of ETs, if you're in the field of channeling, conscious evolution, whatever the case is, he's always looking for great guests on his show, and it's an Instagram Live show, and it is amazing. Me and Kalina have both been on there before, and a lot of people who we've invited to that show, to this show, we've always suggested go over there, which is something I'm going to talk to our guests about tonight, because it's a great little show over there, and they talk about everything that humans see as out there, and it's a beautiful show. Check that out. Last announcement is an ET Whisper announcement. I am going to be in Sedona in just a couple weeks, guys, which means if you want tickets for the 3-day Sedona Transcendence Retreat with myself and Ruben Langdon from Interview with Extra Dimensionals is going to be live there, along with a couple of other channelers, a couple of other speakers. Amazing event. You can go to my website, click on the Transcendence 3-day retreat poster, and go check it out. If you buy the VIP pass, you will be in alignment to have a CE5 with me and Ruben and a couple of other people who are going to be working on sound, vibration, baths, instruments, the singing bowls, and also just some amazing people will be there. So check it out. They're going to have night vision goggles, the whole 9 yards. It'll be really brilliant. Plus, I'll be doing a workshop indoors one day and out in the Sedona vortexes the next. Something that you can check out on the website. All right, guys, I've talked to you guys too long as it is already. I want to talk about our guest tonight. Oriah Mirza is an author, a speaker, a shaman, a trauma life coach, and a mother of 5 children. She's an alien experiencer, an intuitive empath, and a futurist. Oriah gives humanity hope and understanding and conscious evolution on the planet. She's married to the renowned and top full trance channel and psychic medium Riz Mirza. And all of you guys might know him from the show that we had just a few weeks back. Oriah has spoken around the world in women's leadership conferences, workshops, groups, retreats, and on private sessions for over a decade. I've gotten a chance to get to know her a little bit, and she is actually a really amazing person. So what we're going to do tonight, instead of just bringing her in and saying hello, we're going to really say hello, and we're going to bring her in properly. Hello, Oriah. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much. You're so generous. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you're here. I had fun with your husband. He's a great guy. But I want to get to know you like I got to know him that night. And the first thing that we always talk about that really opens up the whole thing is not so much what your story is. I want to hear about that too. But I want to know kind of the things that influenced your early life that opened you to be the person who could have your story, that allowed the development of your story.
Yeah, well, that's a loaded question.
It is.
It sure is. So, as you know, I kind of briefly told you my history and my background can take hours to break down. So I'm going to do it in a shorter amount of time, just quickly to give everybody an idea of the things that I've overcome. And I'm always very cognizant when I do touch upon my personal story that there's always somebody else who has a story that's worse. And I never compare myself, and I never think my story is the worst story out there. And I'm very humbled to hear some of the stories I do hear that people do go through. But in my particular case, I definitely felt I was not going to make it past 30, 34, 35. I thought was my max. And honestly, all arrows were pointing in that direction, that I probably wasn't going to live very long. And that's just from what I went through. So I could tell you a few things. Do you want me to just jump right in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything that you want to share about your past and your story, we're absolutely open and excited to hear.
Okay. So I grew up in Southern California in Los Angeles. Was born in Hollywood, actually, which was kind of odd. And I should have got an inkling right there that I was off to a crazy start. I was born into a Christian religion. It was kind of unusual. They were considered a cult. They have fought in court to deny that they are a cult. But I could see why that people label them a cult, and it was very strict and regimented, and it was like a Christian blend with Chinese mysticism, like meditation and mantras and chanting and things like that, but mixed with Christianity. So it kind of started and was around during the Hare Krishna days, when people were walking down the streets with white robes and hitting the drums in Hollywood. So my dad was a part of that. So I was born and raised in 1973 into that environment. And all was well at first. I thought everything was great. I had a lot of deep spiritual experiences and felt very connected to God, very connected to love. I learned very quickly how to be a so-called healer, helping people in the church. And so everything was really great. The only thing that was off in the beginning, beside being an only child, was that my dad moved every 6 months. Now I still don't know why. I have my speculations. I don't know. He was not in the military. So, I
That's
have no idea.
interesting.
Very interesting. So 6 months to 8 months, a year at the max. I went to 3 high schools my freshman and sophomore year. I don't even remember like how many schools I went to. I don't have any childhood friends because they never really could last back then, with no cell phones or anything. So I was kind of living this already kind of strange lifestyle. And I was excommunicated from the church at 16 because I started to question the elders about their practices and how they were not kind of living up to the standards of the Bible. I took it very seriously. So I was excommunicated for that, which was the first little wake up call. My family all left with me. My mom grew up in the mountains of Santa Barbara, Honduras. So she spoke English as a second language, which basically I spoke English as a second language because she taught me. She never went to a public school. She grew up on a farm with 14 brothers and sisters. My dad was a high school dropout. So I loved education and I really went in deep into my schooling and I loved it. But it wasn't the topic at home, and definitely college was never on the agenda. And really the big conversations were always, who was I going to marry? So
So
I didn't
it
have
was a low priority across the
low,
board for your family.
yeah, across the
I
board. And
see.
I grew up in an inner city. So the areas that I grew up in were always like East LA or San Bernardino. So, and those are big counties, but there are a lot of cities within those counties. So those are all really deep inner city, pretty violent areas. So by the time I was 17, 18, 19, I had already been in so many violent altercations. I had already been mugged and jumped and attempted rapes. And I can't tell you how many things I went through before I even graduated at 18. So
That's rough. I'm sorry to hear that.
yeah. So, I jumped in like the healer's path, right? So I jumped in really fast and I had to learn how to really navigate. My mom was really overwhelmed by being in the US. And so everything was just too much and she didn't understand a lot of things. So I really was kind of raising myself. My dad was always working. So I was kind of on my own. And that long series of events occurred where I ended up getting married at 18 and getting pregnant. And by the time I was 23, I had 3 children. And even though I had a good heart and I was hardworking, that was it. That was my ceiling. I didn't know how to handle any of this because I had a very active mind and active imagination, and I didn't feel like anybody in my family. I felt like I really needed to spread my wings, and I felt like I had a lot to offer. And I felt very trapped in the religion, trapped in the city, trapped in my environment, trapped in my small family at a young age. And so I was getting very restless, and there was a lot of emotional instabilities in my family. Like it was really intense and a lot of fighting. And this is where I drink water.
Yeah. No,
My throat
I don't
chakra.
blame it. Yeah.
This is where I go, here we go.
This
So,
is it's a rough story too. And
yeah,
just by hearing what I've heard so far, it's uh
I try to get through it without choking up or getting like, I've said this story so many times. So long story short, I had the 3 children, was married for 7 years. And there was a lot of things that happened within that marriage was not okay. Nobody should experience. And I exited out. I had no choice. I was starving to death. I was losing weight. I was under extreme PTSD. I was diagnosed with PTSD many times. I had just been in too many, I had been overexposed and in too many situations by the time I was 23. I walked away from Christianity. I felt very disillusioned and I felt very led astray. I felt like I didn't have the right leadership around me. There was no family that could really help me understand. They were struggling themselves. So I had nobody to lean on. So I just dived into work. But then I had a lot of domestic violence situations with men. So this is where it all played out. So my big story was how to be safe around men, which became like decades long story. So I've had a lot of really negative things happen to me, including sexual violence, physical violence, drugged, a lot of things. By the time I was 25, I had been married again and divorced. My dad died and my mom freaked out and she didn't know what to do with her life because she was kind of leaning on him the whole time.
yeah,
And
it's
I
part of
just,
her identity then.
what was that?
I said your mom being married to your dad was part of her identity then.
It was, and she went through so much, and so did he. I mean, both of my parents were traumatized, obviously. I mean, who isn't at the end of the day in some respect? But I have a lot of compassion for them now. But at the time, I couldn't really lean on them too much for anything. So it was a lot of like long hours working and then trying to take care of my kids. And sometimes I'm single and sometimes I'm married, I'm dating, and I'm like going through a lot. But in the middle of all this, I got sucked in to the dark side of Hollywood. So that's where I got into the professional side of everything. So I went very dark, and drugs and alcohol was the way I survived. I cleaned up just enough for my kids. I was constantly numbed out constantly because I was in so much mental, physical, emotional, and every kind of pain. I was just living like a pincushion. I just constantly felt battered and abused. I was a victim to my circumstances. I felt not seen, not heard. I was very low self-esteem, very low value for myself, put myself in crazy situations. I would do anything for my kids, anything, everything I made, any penny I made went to the kids. Everything was about my kids, and I love them, and I'm very close with them now, and I always have been. But during this time, I was starting to lose my grip, and I was starting to lose my grip mentally also. And it was such a shame because, all the teachers and everybody had such high hopes for me, and my grades were so great, and I had all this like potential, but my trauma was so great. No, there was no counselor who was going to fix me. It was PTSD on top of PTSD on top of PTSD. And I just kept getting buried with more. So I started to feel like I was going crazy. And I say crazy like mental illness, like talking to myself in circles, like doing habitual behavior, starting to I'm drinking from morning to night. So I got married at 30, had 2 more children. And when I have children, I become sober 100%. So I took care of my body. Everything was fine. But as soon as I can start drinking again, I started drinking again. And all my relationships with men were extreme. So they were aggressive, loud, fighting, physical altercations. So those are the type of people I attracted. So I constantly was fighting. I was always at war. I didn't eat properly. And in the middle of all this, when I was 23, I had my breast implant. I had breast implants, and I've had them removed since, which caused a complete immune system reaction, illness, breast implant illness, which is a big priority conversation I have now. And I've turned everything around, and I'm healing myself. So by the time I was 37, I had 5 children. I was getting ready to divorce my 4th husband. I had not been sober in I don't even know how many years. I was numb. I went to landmark education as like a hope. It was like a study of oncology. It's just a study of the human being to understand why we do the things we do. It's kind of like Tony Robbins used to go there back in the day, and it used to be called EST. Some people know what it is.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Landmark education, yeah. So that kind of straightened me out a little bit, enough to start a business and to become like a coach, business coach. So I started straightening up my act, but I was still drinking, and I was still completely checked out. My heart was completely shut down and shut off. And I'm the most sensitive, my husband calls me Holly Hobby. I'm just the most gentle, animals and babies, so soft. And so I just was put in such extreme circumstances. Of course, my higher self chose this path for good reason, but I didn't know that at the time. So at 37, I had a bad bottle of wine, and I fought for my life for 5 days in bed, and my family didn't know, but I knew I was going to die that week. And I pled with God, and I pled with my angels and anybody who would listen to me while I went through my convulsions and my sweats and my full overdose. It's kind of like when your body's taxed and your organs are taxed. So then you drink alcohol that's bad or rancid. On top of that is the last straw over, the toxicity level is just too high in your bloodstream. So that's it. So I knew something was severely wrong. I was terrified. I didn't want to tell anyone. So I survived those 5 days. And when I came out of it, I stopped drinking alcohol that day, cold turkey.
Wow.
Never touched it again, ever.
That's rough for
Yeah, I
alcohol. A
can't.
lot of people, they
I
have
can't
bad
touch it.
reactions with
The
the whole
thought of
stuff,
it.
yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's pure poison. I mean, I don't even get me started. I have a lot of things I can say about alcohol, the pros and cons, mostly cons, but I understand alcohol. I used to drink everything on the shelf. And I would drink Tanqueray on the rocks, and then it was just Tanqueray straight. Then it was just out of the bottle. I would drink vodka out of the bottle. I would just, I was a heavy, strong drinker. Now I do have Viking roots, so there's some Danish bloodlines. I don't know, it could be some of that, and some Irish and Scottish in me that can handle my alcohol, but still, it was I basically was killing myself. So by the time I was 37, I hit my max in every area. So my car ran out of gas. I had nothing else to give this planet. I did not have interest in being alive. I loved my children, but I was willing to almost die over my circumstances because it was so great that I almost couldn't hang on anymore for them. I didn't understand why I was feeling so abused all the time. I never mentally could wrap my head around why I had no respect from men. I could not figure it out. I just didn't have the education. And so at that juncture at 37, I had a wake-up call. It was like an epiphany, but it was one of those moments, some people call it, their big awakening, their spiritual ascension, their big awakening moment. That's what happened to me. So it was like all the lights went on. It was like my circuit board lit up, and all of a sudden I remembered who I am and why I'm here. And in the middle of all this toxic programming in my brain and toxic chemicals in my body, and everything was I was just a walking toxic field of energy. And even in spite of all of that, in this awakening, I saw beyond it. And I saw there was more. And I saw I haven't looked under every stone. And I saw that there's an entire world, an entire dimension that I haven't touched yet that had nothing but possibilities. And it rejuvenated me. It put air back into my sails. I absolutely started to believe in myself again, like I did when I was a kid. And it wasn't about men, and it wasn't about my job and status, and it wasn't about what I consumed or who I hung out with or what environments I was in. It was just about how I felt in the moment. And it was the first time I recognized myself and took a step back and checked in with myself and realized that I'm living in 24/7 pain, watching my children, what they're going through with their fathers, watching how I feel helpless in almost every situation of my life. Although I'm a leader and I'm a go-getter and I'm a type A personality, it didn't matter because the circles I would run in were so toxic that everything would just crumble apart. Nothing would ever work. It was just chaos. It was a nightmare all the time. And, now I'm going to fast forward quickly and then we can go back and forth. But now that I'm a coach and I'm a shaman and I've been helping so many people and women especially come through, I just want to say this story, what I'm telling you, I hate to tell you this, but this is very common. This is, I can articulate it in a way now that you can hear it this way. But many women, especially, and men too, go through a lot of deep trauma and they don't know what's wrong with them. So they think it's like something's wrong at their core. Like there's something wrong with them physically. Like they are never going to make it. Like this is not worth it. And that's why there's the suicide attempts. And that's why there's the drug and alcohol numbing. And there's all these things. But it's when I sit down and break everything apart for people that I speak to, and I separate everything out in a slow, methodical fashion, and it stops becoming so overwhelming. And so they can look at their life, the construction of their life and how they've constructed it in a piece by piece kind of scenario so that they can take a step back, take a breather, and be able to assess a little bit more calmly. So that's the key thing here is you can't really heal and you can't really get out of anything unless you calm down. And calming your system down is what I've been spending the last 13 years studying, because I was revving so high, and my everything I did was 1,000 miles an hour. Internally, externally, I was a nervous wreck. I fried my nervous system. My nerves were inflamed. I was on the edge of being diagnosed with so many disorders. I've been to so many specialists about my physical body having an immune system disease or anything like that. Luckily, because I've done a lot of healing work on my body, I wasn't diagnosed with anything, but did find out that I had an inflammatory imbalance through the breast implants. But it doesn't help that I was pushing so hard my anger, the fire in me, the feeling of injustice, feeling like I'm in the wrong place all the time, feeling like this is not my planet. In the beginning, it was good for me to feel these things, because I was able to like jump more into spirituality, so I can find out more about like my soul DNA, and that I'm Palladian, and that, you know, I am psychic, and I'm telepathic, and I'm an empath. And I found all these amazing skills and qualities I didn't even know I had through psilocybin journeys and being led by spirit guides from my husband, and many things that I've experienced. I've realized there's more. But you know what's funny is I had to go full circle, because then with all those new skills, I turned around and came back to myself and used it in a practical way. And this is kind of my platform now, is how to bridge the spiritual, highly ascended, the high vibrational lifestyle, the deeply psychic, mystical life, with the practical living that we all have to do with our friends and family day to day. Because if you're not enjoying your life day to day, then what's the point? And I know everyone's trying so hard, and the most mystical, magical, amazing psychic beings out there who are listening to me know what I'm talking about. If your house ain't clean, you are not having fun yet. So how do you clean your house is you have to understand you're a temple. And so when you really start to honor what you put in your mouth, what you watch, what you speak about, what you say to yourself, you have to slow everything way down to really get to this place. And that's where meditation comes in handy. But I've spent a lot of time in this area. So you can ask me any question you want.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. One thing I want to speak on, part of your story. Um, it resonates, the battle that you had internally through addiction, where you loved your kids and you did for your kids, but you still had addiction. It was something that I didn't see a lot through my own addiction. I was that guy who was going home after hitting the streets for dope and coming back home and then
Yeah.
taking care of my son. But I was in some real bad places
Mhm.
where, you know, 2 3-year-olds are running around cocaine dealer's house where everyone's smoking crack, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? You guys aren't feeding this kid. This kid's crying of hunger. So that
Yeah.
part of me never broke, and that's what got me clean too. So that resonates a lot. That
Right.
part where when you see that even the kid's love doesn't make you feel like you can finish, that's the part where most people I know who actually kept their bond with their children through addiction
Yes.
got clean. So
I
thank
mean,
you for sharing that.
they are actually, at the end of the day, they are what kept me alive. Because obviously, and we joke now because I say, yeah, I needed 5 of you to actually tether me down to this planet, because it was too overwhelming. My love for them was too overwhelming for me to give up on them. So it just forced me to fight a little bit harder and a little bit harder. Since then, I have reversed. I can say honestly, I mean, it's a big statement what I'm going to say right now. But I think I have reversed almost every single trauma I have experienced. And I'm not saying that lightly, as you know. I'm
Sure.
saying that, as you know, right? I'm saying that with deep soul work, deep spiritual work, in understanding the healer's path, understanding why I chose this path, understanding this earth is a school, that we're here to learn how to create ourselves, that it's nobody else's responsibility but our own to learn how to manage our emotions and our feelings, but yet allow people to help us to be inclusive and let people be in our world, not isolated, which is so easy to do, and to breathe in new life every day so you can feel normal. And you know, what's crazy is my whole life, I never knew what normal was. I never experienced normal. Like, what's normal? I felt like a freak show pretty much every day of my life. And so this is the first time I can say I feel normal. So now I understand what normal is finally. Normal is just it's kind of like the balance. Let's say a rose is growing and it's not deformed, it's growing properly. So it's growing normally. So it's growing the way it should grow. So how it was intended. So it was like I had to be born into this very deep matrix to understand it, understand the depths of it, so that when I do exit out and was able to get out of the matrix, I was able to come back and help people who felt stuck in it and felt the same exact way I felt.
Well, that's probably the question then, because this is something that I think our community needs the most to understand and to learn. And people with the the wounded healer archetype of energy, people who've gone through great trauma and went to a very spiritual place and help other people.
Mhm.
Um, the people like that are best to offer this advice. How do we find a way to be grounded? How do we find a way to be centered? How do we find a way to be spiritual when we're living in pure chaos around us?
Well, I have the answer for that. And the answer I'm going to give all of you is not easy, but it's doable. And once you do it, and once you get the hang of it, you will never stop doing it. So I'm going to say what it is. It's very simple. You have to start in the middle of everything you're going through. You have to start liking more things. So let's go into that.
That's profound.
It's profound. It'll shake you to your core, and you will see who your real God is. So if you spend your life day in and day out, and only you know, spending most of your time unhappy because of what you don't like around you, which is totally fine because you're not happy with your circumstances. Nobody's forcing you to like anything. You don't have to be happy with what your circumstances. You can change your circumstances, but in order to change it, most people don't have the energy. They're so burned out and tapped out and destroyed mentally and emotionally and exhausted. They don't even know where to begin. They don't know where to start to begin the process of changing anything, let
We're
alone
burned
one.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, let alone one thing. Look how hard it is to change one aspect of your life. Look what it takes. And let's say you're a person who have 10 things you want to change so that you can be more comfortable, so you can be happier, so you can breathe easier, so you can sleep better at night, so that you can have more fun with your friends and family. You can have more fun with yourself. How do you do that? Is it too late for you? Do you feel like the end of the road and there's no turning back and now it's too late? You're one of the forgotten ones. Well, this is exactly the arena I started. This is where I was at. So how I did it was I had to start liking things. Did I have help? Yes, of course. I did tons of shaman journeys, psilocybin journeys, and I don't know how I would have lived my life without that help, because it also helped remove addiction. It also absolutely helped to reprogram my burned out brain cells. And if you read about the mycelium network and how it works and how it's healing people from all sorts of mental illnesses and really severe emotional traumas, the studies are out there. You guys can go and see what that's all about if you need more information. But so that was a big criteria that helped me, but it doesn't do it for you. It sets you up. It puts you in the driver's seat. It puts you in the position that you can make your choices, but no one can make your choices for you but you. And if you don't make choices for yourself, somebody will make them for you. So let me say that again. If you don't make choices for yourself, nothing will happen. But if you don't make choices for yourself, also, somebody else will make them for you. You can guarantee that. And then that's when you're going to start feeling like you live trapped in a situation you can't get out of, or you feel that you are no longer like the creator of your reality. You feel more the victim. You feel like you're being dragged behind the truck, not driving it. So if you're starting at this place, do not fret and do not fear and do not worry, because this is the starting place. You have gotten out of all of your curriculum that you needed to get out of. You have completed your assignments. You have learned how pain works. You have learned how fear works. You have learned how much you can tolerate. You have learned your capacities. You've learned where you max out. You've learned where you hide. You have learned how much you can be afraid and also how much you hate. You have learned about yourself without judgment. You have just observed and you've learned. And now you have
prerequisites out of the way now.
You got them out of the way now. So now it's time for the game to really begin. Now that you've gotten through the heaviest part of what we call the creatrix, which is the creation matrix, now that you have gotten out of the elementary level of your school of life, you now can start going into the junior high, high school, and then grad school. Once you're in grad school, you're teaching this stuff. So as you guys know, right? For those of you who are in grad school. And then high school, you're almost there, but you're still throwing a lot of tantrums. You're still testing all the waters to make sure that it's still not you. Are you sure it's me? Maybe it's someone else. So you're still not convinced yet. So you're still in high school. By the time you realize it's all you, always been you, and always will be you, and you are the only one responsible for absolutely everything that is occurring, including from your higher self, co-creating before you have arrived to this planet with your friends and family and coworkers, and it was for your divine highest self, and everything is for your best interest. Once you realize all this and surrender and let go, and realize it's okay now. You can come out from under the bed. The storm is over. The war is over. You can take your first breath. You can take your first step and look around like a little alien in your bedroom. And whose room is this? Whose clothes are these? I literally went through that. I didn't know any of the clothes that were in my closet. I didn't know any of this jewelry. Didn't match me who I really was. I'm wearing my little 80s retro sweater now. So I wasn't like that. Before I was living a life that I thought I was supposed to live and followed the rules that the matrix set for me, but I didn't make choices for myself. I didn't know how. So I had to learn. I had to learn how to like food and music. I had to know what my favorite songs were. I had to learn how to walk on grass again.
I think that's the hardest pill to swallow when someone comes into the community and sees and hears this thing. You create everything in your reality. It's like, no. I couldn't have created that. But
that's
once
bad
people
news.
get it, yeah, of course.
That's bad news bears.
That's the worst. And
That's the
once they
worst.
get that energy behind the acceptance of that, that really is where it begins, isn't it?
Well, yeah, nobody has ever been able to hack the system. I mean, we've seen everybody try and they never, ever make it. You have to take every single class and every single step, and nobody gets by as we see that. And so we just keep reincarnating until we can get it fast enough before the end of our life. So those of you who are on your path awakened, you know that this is probably your last lifetime. So you got to get this now while you're here, or you will come back and do this again. This makes logical sense because as a soul, you can understand that you're learning creation. So as far as accepting that you created your reality, you can't rush through this. As much as I want to give you the rose-colored version, there is no other version but first logic, and then second reality is if you move this cup from here to here, it's going to move, and energy is energy. And if you have your intentions here, but then move it here, you're going to see your life is going to adjust over here. So if you start to become more scrutinizing and paying more close attention to your behavior, kind of like a scientist looking at yourself from like you're in a lab and you're watching the specimen and how this thing eats and how this thing moves through the house and how this thing talks, you'll start to get an idea of what you're dealing with. Now, in my case, I was dealing with somebody who was diagnosed with a autoimmune possibility of a disease. I had heavy metals in my blood. I had toxicity running through my system. My organs were failing in cooking, like cooked from the alcohol. So my body was dying. I had boils all over my face from that. I was mentally completely fried. I had nothing else left except just to love my kids. That's all I could do. I just mustered to love my kids. Now, here's the amazing part of this story is my husband, Riz, who I'm married to now for 13 years, he met me in this condition.
Ooh, I did not know that.
It's an awesome story. And boy, let me tell you. So imagine a leopard, a mother leopard, like a big cat, right? Mother who's had cubs. So she's been through what I've been through. So she's traumatized. So she's in a cage. And if you get near her, you will die.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
that's what Riz walked into.
It's,
He's a very
I have
special
to
human.
ask, how did that unfold afterwards? Because
Well,
obviously I want to focus too on your story, but I think that this
right.
part is a big part of the story.
Yeah, because
too.
people feel they can't get lucky in love or they're not going to be able to find a partner because of their damage. And it's understandable. I had sworn men off, and I know everybody's heard that before, but I had sworn men off after marriage number 4. I'm like, this is ridiculous. It's not going to work. I'm not doing this anymore. So I stopped the idea that men exist or men need to be a part of my life or I need to be in a relationship. It just was not interesting to me anymore. So I had made sure that I learned an entrepreneurial career, like I learned a skill, and I was able to support myself and my children and moved out on my own. It took me many years to get to that point, and I was able to finally do it, and I moved out. So I was very self-sufficient, and I felt very confident, and I was sober, and I was, I looked decent on the outside. My hair was brushed and I looked decent, but I had boils here and here from toxicity. I was very thin because I never ate. Hardly ever. I was Red Bull, wine, cheese, like the weirdest things. I didn't eat normal food. And when Riz met me, and he says this story now, he has many versions, but he saw something in me. And see, this is the part, you guys. Pay attention to this for those of you who have given up on love. Because I was focusing on myself and not focused on trying to get a guy or get the partner, he had a chance to see me for who I really was, because I wasn't trying to impress him. I wasn't trying to be dating anybody. I wasn't interested in that way. And he was able to observe me and watch me. And according to what he said, he saw a tremendous amount of fire, willpower, determination, a fire in my eyes of like a kind of determination he's never seen in anyone that he's ever met before. And he was right, because I was fighting for my life. And I was so serious to make sure that my children made it, that I would do anything to heal myself, but I didn't know how. So because he was already a trance channel and a psychic medium, and he had just moved to LA and started working with people, I was already a coach, a business coach at that time. So when we got together, it was very businesslike. It was for professional reasons. We got together to partner up and see if we can work together. And I was going to help him with his business. He'll help me with mine. And it was kind of like, it was just really business. And he was also in that headspace because he also was burned out and fried and was single at 40 and he was done. So I met him as I was getting close to 40. He was already 40. And this is when, people freak out because they feel like if it doesn't happen by then, it's not going to happen. Well, that's not true. Our whole life started at 40.
Living proof.
Our whole life, both of us. So we found out that we were both totally traumatized, broken people. He's from the Bronx. He went through a very similar and worse story, being that he's of color. So he's had it even harder than me in some ways. And here we are, we teamed up and we started working together. And then we found out that we can't live without each other because we were so symbiotic and we were so on the same page and we wanted the same things and we wanted to help people the same way. And we were both big 80s fans, freaks.
Yeah, I
And
love
we
the
love,
retro stuff you guys
I
do.
love the 80s. And you see all this stuff behind me. This is our podcast room. And this is the kind of stuff we both love. So the fact that we both like the same things, and I never ever looked for that when I was trying to date or marry previous. I was just interested if they could support me or take care of me and the kids. And if they were like, they looked a certain way. I don't know what my criterias were. I mean, honestly, obviously my eyes were completely shut when I was
Well,
in
you
the
were in
dating
survival
process.
mode. Yeah.
Totally. So that's how we started our healing business. And we have been full-time shamans 7 days a week, international retreats 5 times a year to sacred sites. And we've been doing this for 13 years. We have helped thousands and thousands and thousands of people worldwide. And my husband, we do this thing called the Circle of Light. So he trance channels and gives personal messages to people in the room that last up to 3 or 4 hours sometimes. And we do live streaming and podcasts and books and you name it, just everything. But the whole point is, how did I get here? Well, number one, I had to look for something that I liked. I had to look for it because I didn't see anything I liked. One day I said to Riz, we were talking about our heart, and I was telling him something about he needs to open his mind. I said something like that. And he said to me, this was in the early days, and he said, you need to open your heart. And I just looked at him and I was like, for what? Why do I need to open my heart for? That's like ridiculous. What has the heart ever given you? It was word for word what I told him. I was like, that is the last thing I'm going to do. The heart's never, ever played a part in my life, and I'm never going to have it play a part in my life. And he says, well, that's what the issue is. That's what your problem is you're cut off from your own love and your own heart. Your pain is overwhelming you. You can't live like this. And it was the first time I really actually stopped and thought about it. It's such a simple statement. You think that you would logically think that for yourself, but for some reason I couldn't have those thoughts. So when he said that, it hit me like, oh, you're right. I should probably want my heart to feel something. I think that's probably the thing we're supposed to do here, right? Like we're supposed to feel. I think we're supposed to feel something, right? I know I feel for my children, but what is this feeling for other humans? Or like, I don't have that. Maybe I'm faulty. There's something wrong with me. All it was just so much trauma, so much fear, and so much pain. So I had to do a lot of deep work into my childhood, deep regression work to find out where it all started. I had to release a lot of things. I had to understand why I chose this path. And clearly, here's the answer: because of what I'm doing right now. And hopefully in your audience right now, there's one person who says, you're speaking my language. I got you, sister. This is me. And you're actually doing something right now. I don't know what you're doing, but maybe there's something moving inside of you that's telling you that what I'm saying is true and that it's not over yet. And if you feel that feeling, you just know that this is real and you are going to have the life you want and you will succeed. Because if you've made it this far and you have a cell phone and you have a laptop, you're watching in some format, guess what? You are way ahead of the game. So if you have those two items, you can do anything with your life. I did it without a cell phone and a laptop. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
So and I'm 50 now, by the way, and I'm aging backwards. And why am I doing that? Because I have reversed how I eat. So now I'm eating healthy, which is a whole nother topic. I reverse how I speak to myself. So I'm now kind and gentle to myself. I pay attention to what I'm saying and doing. I'm not lost in the room and lost in the clouds. I'm very careful with who I hang out with. I'm very careful with the places that I go to. If I feel that it's not good for me, I leave. I don't make a big deal about things. I'm a Taurus triple Leo, so I have a tendency to go big or go home. So I've had to find ways to chill out. use some of that valley girl in me and learn how to chill out. I had to stop being so dramatic and so intense because it was killing my system. It was killing my body. And imagine what it was doing to the children. Imagine what it was doing to everyone around me that had to deal with this supernova broken vehicle called me. I'm like a broken vehicle that's a supernova that's crashing into things and damaging things. But this car has potential to like blast, you know, and everyone knew it. It's just that I didn't have help or education or direction, anybody to hold my hand, anybody to give me advice. There was nobody to give me, and my soul asked for it. I didn't have grandparents that wanted to be around me or wanted to teach me things and sit next to them and guide me through things. I didn't have anybody helping with my kids in that way either. I had one set of grandparents and she was unstable and she was watching the kids and it was scary. I didn't want the kids going through that. So I wasn't in situations that were healthy. So I had to change every single tiny detail of my life. I'm still changing and adjusting things. I'm still moving things around. I'm still saying maybe not blue, maybe red. Maybe I don't want that, you know, whatever. Like I'm constantly adjusting my life to what suits me. So I feel better. My whole goal every second of the day is how to feel good. Because you know what happens if you don't do that?
Yeah,
You know what happens if you do the opposite?
you're
You
not
will
going to be
die,
happy.
and you will die. You know how you will die? You will create something, you will attract something, you will develop something, you will put yourself in a situation where you exit stage left. And why do you do that? Because you're so unhappy that you cannot be here anymore. And what are you unhappy about? You could have tons of love around you and be the happiest, beautiful angel in the room. And everyone is like, but I don't understand why you're unhappy. Maybe they're unhappy because they didn't get fulfilled in this one little tiny area that was the biggest thing for them in their whole life. And they didn't give it to themselves. And maybe that one thing is all they really came here for. And no one knows what that one thing is. So making amends with yourself, finding peace with yourself in these areas. Like I'm to the point, it's going to sound dramatic, but I'm to the point, like, not physically, but proverbially, is that how you say it? Proverbially, I get on my knees to honor and worship myself, like in gratitude that I exist, that I made it to this point, that I can speak, that my brain works, that I can think coherently, that I don't take anything for granted. I don't take anything for granted. My kids walk out this door. I am so grateful for every moment I had up until that moment, especially in LA. I'm so grateful that my husband still smiles when he sees me. I'm still grateful that I can comb my hair. I'm so grateful for the simple things in life. And you know, what happens in the spiritual community is you go up, 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 up this pyramid of getting to the heights of the heights of the heights of the heights. And you're with the spirit guides and you're in the Galactic Federation and you are traveling and you are enjoying your cosmic self. And that is awesome. Believe me, I know all about it. But what happens is you have to still contend with the fact you're on this 3D reality plane. Now, is this place not God? That's a big question to ask yourself. Is it against your beliefs? And your beliefs might be, I don't like the contrast. We're all supposed to be in oneness. I don't understand. Why are we so divided? Well, how about it's that you're in a mixed class? So you're with elementary, kindergarten, right? You're with preschool, kindergarten, elementary, middle school, high school. You're with all the classes, all the grades. And you know, if you want to get to that senior list and you want to get to the graduate class, you know what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to understand that you're in a school that is multi-level. If you make the kindergartners wrong and you were once one, then what good does that do you? It's like being like you're a college grad on a campus and a little 5-year-old comes running by and throws potato chips at you and you lose your mind. You lose your mind
That's
because you're
very
in
similar, isn't
you're in
it?
grad school. Yeah, you're in grad school. You're supposed to be so serious, and this kid just did this. How dare that happen? Instead of understanding you are in a school that has all these grades. So this is the conversation I'm having with you guys is not considered the fun conversation. This is not the one everybody wants to click on right away, you know? But if you're here this far, you should give yourself a big pat on the back because that means that there's something here for you. And it could be a tiny little speck. Maybe you've done all the work on yourself and there's just one little thing. Well, that one little thing could throw your game way off because
There's
you did not take care of that one thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I heard you pause, and I thought, you were done with the idea.
Well, you
I
know,
do
I
that
just been on
sometimes
a
because
roll.
well, no, I got something in my brain that you said earlier that was interesting, and my brain doesn't hold very long, the types of,
Totally
things, but
fine.
you had said something that really struck me, in a very deep sense, and something that I think is also important for people who are trying to find that path out of chaos. And you said you have to start liking things, and that
Yes.
really hit me heavy. What were
Yes.
some of those things that
And
first,
you,
the simple
yes.
stuff that you first started liking to come out of that energy?
Great question. And you have to start small. So don't think I'm going to go outside and I like that neighborhood. And so we're going to move there. Now, that could work actually and has worked for people, but not everybody can make moves that big. Sometimes you have to just start in your kitchen. So for me, it was food because I was eating like absolutely mindlessly, like no rhyme or reason, like chips are my dinner, like that, things like that. So I had to start liking and understand why I didn't like to eat. And so here's what I found out. So my dad contracted lymphoma cancer and he died, but it wasn't from that. It was from obesity. He was 365 pounds and he had an eating disorder his whole life. And I witnessed and watched that and the trauma that comes with that. And his childhood was very traumatizing. And I could see the pattern as to why food was the answer for him. So I did not realize subconsciously I started to hate food because it took my father.
That makes sense.
This is where I always I have to let it come in and go out because I could never resist when I talk about that because it's always very painful. He died when I was very young, but it's very painful because it could have been prevented. And it was just food. That was the issue. So instead of like 2 or 3 eggs in the morning, so he needs 6 eggs, and he's half a loaf of bread, not 2 pieces of bread, and half a package of bacon, or the whole package, or a whole gallon of ice cream with like dairy milk, like high fructose sugar, like that kind of eating. So I did not like to eat. So as soon as I started liking things, so I started with food. So as I started liking to eat food, like trying it out. So Riz would bring me something, would take me to restaurants. I always had a lot of issues in restaurants. I didn't know what to eat. So I would start trying things and I would get emotional and I didn't know why. And it took me years to understand it. But as I started to unravel and understand that it's not that I don't like eating, it's attributed to a trauma that I forgot that it was there. Like it was like programmed. It was in my subconscious. I had no idea. So as you start to like things, there's a good chance you're going to unearth some areas where you were afraid to go because that might expose your situation. But that's what you want because you have worked very hard to hide these things from yourself for good reason because you don't want to be in pain. Well, what happens is it builds up and 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 builds up until you are so full of your own shit. Okay, literally, you can't take it anymore. And you won't even admit that to yourself. You blame everybody else. And that's fine. That's a stage. And I don't even make that wrong because that is totally a stage. And I was in that stage for a very long time. I was aware that I needed a lot of work to do on myself. I was overwhelmed with how much there was, and it was easier just to blame others. And I stayed in that spot for a long time. It was not easy for me to transition over to accepting that I create my reality. This took time. I had to throw this pasta against the wall many times to understand how cause and effect works, how I create my reality. I had to test it out. And almost every single person I know has done it exactly the same way. And there's almost no human being that can say they haven't done it this way, because this is how you know you're a creator. This is how you find out, is you have to see what happens if I make choice A, this is the results I get. It's going back to the basics. And it's kind of funny that we actually have to remind ourselves, but sometimes we get so ahead of the game, we get so far into the future, and we have a hard time coming back to earth to keep this storyline going of being human, because it's work. It takes time and effort and energy, but it doesn't always have to stay in that vibration. It does get easier. It does change. I know, but I have to be very clear, because I'm not trying to sell you anything. You're going to have to know it takes time. But every step you take, that's a positive step. Every step you take, that's one good thing you did for yourself. One thing you gave yourself to like that you didn't like yesterday counts. And you're putting it in escrow. And before you know it, you'll have more of that than you do of negative feelings. And you will reprogram yourself and you will rewire yourself. And then once you do that, then you got more of your hands on the reins of your life. And there's going to be less chaos, because you don't have so many surprises and things that are coming out of left field that hurt your feelings constantly. You're more paying attention because you're going slower. You're more methodical. You're taking your time to assess a situation. You're taking your time to look at what's in front of you, listen to what you're saying, hear the person speaking. This is all back to the basic stuff. But let me tell you something. I was so grateful for the guides, the spirit guides, Riz, the teachers, wisdom teachers, anyone who has ever helped me that has said these words to me, helped me so much to hear the basics again. The basics of reality construction, the basics of creating your reality. And believe it or not, even though it sounds daunting, it is going to be the most pleasurable ride you're ever going to take in your life, because you're going to feel that you're in control, and you're going to feel conscious and awake and aware, and your eyes are open on the ride of life. And you're open and you're focused on what's in front of you. So you are so much more coherent than you've ever been. And guess who notices? Everyone. Everyone. Everybody notices when you wake up, when you decide that it's your turn to play at the table, when you decide that this life is for you, when you decide that you're here to experience yourself as a God creator, that you are all things, that you are all the species at one time or another. You've been all the past lives and the different cultures, and there is no time. So they still exist simultaneously, even as we speak right now, and giving you information from other dimensions. It is a giant multiverse reality we live in, a giant universe, and we're all in it. So the sooner we start liking each other and liking things, we're not talking about love yet, we're just working on liking. It's literally going to a kindergarten class, and all the kids have snotty noses and dirty hands, and everyone came from recess, and everyone's sitting on the floor. And then the teacher's like, okay, everybody now hold hands. And everyone's like, oh God, nobody wants to do it. And so a couple kids still have it, and they'll like hold hands, but the girls don't want to hold the boys' hands. And there's all this drama, and it's already started in kindergarten.
That's the truth.
You see how it starts? It begins the process of division of you're not like me, I'm not like you, I don't like that thing. And all these opinions and perspectives start very, very young. So you just take it for granted. You think that's who you are. You think that's your personality. That's just the way you are. That's your astrology chart. That's just it, Sure, that's fine if you're happy with it. If that's the story you want, and it's a very good story, and you can tell it with a smile on your face, and it's authentic, and the person in the mirror agrees, then by all means, you are enjoying your life. But if you cannot say that, if you cannot feel that authentically, there's nothing to be upset about. It's nothing to feel hurt about. It's something to just only recognize. And once you recognize it, the next thing you do is you address your environment, you address your situation. You look at one thing that you would like to work on, the one thing that you would like to change, and you start focusing on that one thing. It could even be creativity. You haven't picked up a paintbrush in a long time. I know it's standard protocol, start painting, but that's just an avenue. For many people, it is the first avenue to get you out of the linear thinking, structural matrix kind of thoughts, and you go into the other side of that imagination that you want to tap into. So this is the beginning of how you can start stretching your limbs, get out of your box, start taking a big breath, open your shoulders, breathe, move your body, stretch, move your body. Do not be afraid to move everything. You don't need to be a professional. You don't need to look awesome. You don't need to have the perfect pose. You don't need to be an Instagram influencer. You can just move your body because you're human, and it's okay to be exactly the way you are. And you are in a perfect place at the perfect time, doing the perfect thing right now. This is your moment. And it's always your moment, and you're always going to have your moment because you are God. And so in your moment, you can choose how you want it. So this is just a very long and big and detailed conversation smushed into 90 minutes. That's all this is. And it's a conversation that many gurus and many teachers and many graduates are having around the planet all the time. And it's been happening since the beginning of time. And everybody has a different way of saying it. I can only come from where I'm coming from. And I could only come from real life experience of how it really, really worked. And it wasn't a structural thing. I didn't have to learn mantras or affirmations. I didn't have to follow one type of protocol or one type of belief system. I just had to understand how to like things more. I had to learn to like myself. I had to learn to like my skin color. I had to learn to like my smile. I had to learn to like everything. Everything. And it took one thing at a time, one thing at a time. And I went slow and I took my time and I really got to see where I'm at and what I've created. I really got a good scope, a good picture of what I have done. In my manicness, in my madness, what I had created. Some of the stuff that came out of it was really good. And a lot of it was extremely painful. And I had to address that. I just had to address it. I didn't have to ignore it or make myself wrong. I just had to address it. I just had to notice that it's there, understand that it's there, understand that I co-created it. And I obviously put this in my path for a reason. And it's probably because I didn't know any other way to do it. So I'm dealing with it now. But now I can learn how to do it differently because I am reprogrammable. I am an intelligent being. I am a multidimensional star child. I am love and light. I'm all of it. I am the great I am. I am oneness. So if you are all these things and you are the stars and you are the planets and you are all of creation and down to the atoms and the nanomolecules, then you are all things. And if you are all things, there's nothing against you. Everything is for you. Everything is for you. Even the plants and the animals are here and aware of you.
I want to ask you too. I want to go back to something you said about the basics. This is something that we have a lot of in our community. We have a lot of people who've learned the basics mentally and they haven't gone through either emotional energies or have done any work. They just conglomerate knowledge in their mind and say, okay, now I know it all. And now I've got it. But when they go to apply that into their life, there's not much progress because first of all, they're not implementing it, but they've already gotten advanced understanding. So they're trying to get advanced. And I think that bringing it back to the basics applies to everyone, whether you're just beginning or whether you've been doing it for 20 years.
It's a very humbling experience when you try to like something. So we can just take our time here because if I could rewind my life and go back to the moment I learned this, what I'm saying to you now, when I was learning this, I wish I would have slowed everything way down here because I wanted to absorb every molecule of this information. Obviously. So when I started to like things is when I got exposed right instantly, immediately. because the second I went to like things, I saw that I was incapable of liking it. So I went to the next thing and the next thing. And I was like, oh, wow. So I actually hate everything. So I actually am cutting myself off from life, like putting a plant in a closet. I'm basically shutting down. So I know what usually happens after that. You can see what happens after that to people who shut down and isolate and cut it off. To address life from the simple stance of how to like something, it can get to the most hardened criminals out there and to the most esoteric, philosophic adventurers. There's nobody that this won't touch, because this is where we are all equal. You can't lie to yourself when you don't like something. And this is where you will find your God self. It's easy to put the wool over your eyes with love, but it's different with like. So when you begin to like things, one thing at a time, you will notice the way you do it is different than how you've ever liked anything ever before, because you're going to understand exactly why you like it, exactly where it came from, and how hard it was for you to even get there. And let me tell you something, you are going to start honoring the experience so much more. Now imagine times that by 100 things you like. Can you imagine the honor that you would bring to your life to just be alive? Not about your success, not about anything, but just being alive. Because you're honoring yourself in such a detail. And that's what we all want to do in this fast-paced life, is we want to slow everything down. We just want to slow everything down. That's it. That's what everybody really wants. Look how we felt during the pandemic, some of us. There was a lot of like sighs of like exhales finally, like we're getting a break for a minute just to catch up. And then now we're back on the, everything's fast paced, but you don't have to join that rat race. My life is extremely full. My schedule is extremely busy, but I honor every single tiny move I make. And I
That
have to.
pandemic was a great gift that way too for a lot of
Absolutely.
people.
It was, and a huge wake-up call too, because it also exposed what we were doing prior to that. Like the way we were living was crazy, like intense and rushing and trying to be better than the next guy and hurrying up, and we have to build and do this and do that and get the better job. And it was a lot of competitiveness, and just everyone, it was like we were almost it was a different kind of rat race. It doesn't matter how,
It showed the holes in the systems, and it showed the holes in the boat of our lives. And that was the greatest gifts it could, so we can readjust everything.
Yeah. I want to address people who live in the big cities for a second. It's important to me to talk about this because it's not talked about enough from other healers and teachers. It's not easy living in a big city. Okay. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. If you live in a big city and you want to make it here and do it, you're going to have to work, I'm sorry to say, harder. So understand that going in. I didn't know that at first, but you can see the difference when you go out of the big city, that nature helps you, that less chaos and confusion and traffic and crime and noise and pollution and this and cars and trains and planes and all this stuff and politics, as it slows down and becomes quieter and there's more nature, all of a sudden you get a chance to slow down and become more quiet. That's why people go to those places, so that you get a chance to like try to settle in and deep breathe and to calm down. For those of you that are going to live in the big city for the rest of your life, like I believe that's what my journey is about. I'm probably going to be in a big city my whole life. I had to come to terms with that. It was not easy. It was not an easy decision to stay in a big city, because the level of how much you have to, the self-discipline you have in giving to yourself at the level and in the way that you need when there's so much distraction and pulling at you and so much interruption, it's like you have to almost focus harder and you have to almost be more diligent. And if those of you who are in big cities right now that are struggling because you don't understand why it's not going faster for you, or you're not healing quicker, or it's not moving the way you want it to move, I want you to take into consideration the environment you're in. You're going to have to. It's a part of our contract with ourselves that we wanted to live here in our big cities. You can move. There's no one stopping you from moving. You can move anytime. I used to live right across the street from the ocean in Malibu on PCH, and they had their own issues with traffic and ambulances and semi-trucks and race cars and just craziness. And it was supposed to be the most secluded, amazing place. So I was and I travel around, a lot. So I know it's not the location necessarily that gives you what you need, but it could really help you to understand that when you are in a big city, it could really, really challenge you in all of your healing. So be aware of that and give yourself some credit. Like, have compassion for yourself and understand the situation you're in, and get a sense of humor too, by the way.
I live in a small city. I mean, we have just maybe a little over 120,000 here in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I feel the auric fields of people in the apartment complex on top of ours. It really is extra work, and I appreciate you sharing that. We're at the time right now where it's time for the lightning round. So I wanted to ask you some benevolent questions that will help people get to know you, because the people who already know you as part of the circle of light. They know that you do the work that you do. They know these things, but maybe they don't know some of these personal questions. And if you want to pass, just say pass and we'll move to the next one.
Okay.
But they're benevolent, so most people don't pass. You can if you want, though. That's the point.
Okay.
What's your favorite color?
Right now, my favorite color is aquamarine.
That's beautiful. Thank you. What is your favorite band and or song?
George Michael, Faith.
Oh, great song.
I could cry every single time I hear that song. There's like some of his top hits in the height of his career, because he's been through so much, and he poured everything into his music and poured everything. His voice is so emotional. You can hear everything. And there's so many of his songs that I cry to because they're so amazing. And I also love Morrissey. Morrissey is one of the most authentic singers, and I saw him in concert recently, and he sounds exactly how he sounded when I was putting black eyeliner on in high school on the floor in my mirror.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
George Michael, I heard one of his songs a couple weeks ago that I hadn't heard in years, and that was a Freedom 91 song. It was so amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, great. And I know you're a retro person too, so I assume that there might be some good 80s/90s stuff in there too.
Oh yeah.
Which is awesome.
Sure. Yeah.
What's your favorite food?
I'm going through a phase right now where I'm really liking scallops the way that Gordon Ramsay makes them. I think does he say scallops? Scallops.
Yeah.
And I love how passionate he is about scallops, and I love how he talks about scallops, and I love how he makes it. So I've been copying a lot of his recipes, and I have been enjoying the playfulness and the joy of making scallops because it's so silly. It's such a silly looking food too. It's just this little rubbery circle, and it's like to fix it up and make it into something fun and gourmet looking or whatever. Like, I'm having a lot of fun with this simple food. So I'm enjoying scallops right now.
I love that. Yeah, we actually used one of his recipes for sirloin steak, and that was just the most amazing.
I was going to say he is the king of steak. I've tried to copy other chefs with their technique, and I did not come out the way Gordon's recipes for steak comes out. Like his comes out just amazing. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's the best
amazing.
one I've
Better than
ever
any
eaten.
restaurant. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, by far. He's an amazing dude, and a lot of people don't like him because he's so, brash, but I
Yeah.
love the passion behind
Yeah.
his, efforts, he's a kind guy when he gets past that passionate
Yeah.
part.
He's a lot of passion.
Yeah, he's great. Thank you for that. What is your favorite type of animal?
My first go-to answer, of course, is always the cat because that is my, familiar. That is my sidekick through life is cats. But I have been really enjoying on Instagram. I follow all these accounts where you see farm animals doing things that are funny, and I've been really enjoying how smart and silly donkeys are. And certain cows, certain breeds of cows are like they're like really fun and with like a sense of humor. And I love to see that if you play violin or any kind of wind instrument or strings in front of like horses and cows and some farm animals, they love it so much, and some of them even sway. And there's so many amazing videos of how animals are like affected by music. So right now I love cats, but I will say I'm really into farm animals right now.
I
Yeah,
love that. The
yeah.
donkeys are
The
amazing.
donkeys.
They
I
are
wish.
amazing animals.
Yeah, they're really smart, I hear.
Yeah, and they're really loners too, which is why I really appreciate them. They can connect to people and do, but uh, they're replacing sheepdogs with goat or with donkeys
Really?
now. Yeah, because they'll
No.
bite the shit out of a dog if they get too, or like a fox or some kind of wolf. They'll just bite them to protect the chickens if they like the chickens. They're
Okay,
replacing.
well,
They're cheaper and it's
I'm gonna
great.
have to research this now because that's exciting to me. I need to
Yeah.
find out about that.
Oh, it's amazing. I saw a video. It's crazy, but thank you for that. Now, this one might be a little tough for you too. You're a world traveler, so you have more to choose from. But what is the favorite place that you've ever been for both the beauty and the vibrational feel, the vibes of the place? What's the best place in nature ever?
In nature, or it doesn't matter, city or
It can be a city. If you do a city, give us a city and one in nature.
So my favorite city and my favorite country and the favorite location is Old Delhi, India.
Fascinating.
It is like you are stepping back in time to the beginning of just commerce and the marketplace, and it's like they never deconstructed it. They just built upon it over and over and over for all these years. And the way everybody navigates, it's like it's so many people, and the way they all navigate together in there's like harmony, and they understand the way everything works. And I've been to India probably maybe 10 times. I've been all over India, and I never feel the way I feel when I'm in Old Delhi anywhere else in the world. I have such great reverence and respect for humanity there, um, and so much gratitude for these people showing us, people who have so much, how they exist and live and function with so much, like, even though they're uncomfortable, there's like a serenity about them that I can't explain, that I don't see really anywhere else. It's very unusual. Yeah, I
That's
could say a lot
beautiful.
about India.
Yeah, no, my wife, she was practicing Hindi for a long time, and she dated a lot of
Yeah.
Southern Indian men at that time, and she has an affinity for the culture, and that's somewhere that we both want to go because we've heard from everyone how great and beautiful some of the cities are, and the ancientness of the place
Right.
just
The
feels
only
by.
thing I would advise currently is the last time we went, they are experiencing a pretty heavy duty pollution issue that's beyond their normal pollution that they have, air quality. So it was in the red at the high. There's like number 1 or 2 in the world of being the worst air quality, and you have to wear a mask all the time now, and your eyes get watery. And the poor people that are not wearing masks, they just live in it. But it is the last retreat we went on, like a lot of people had some issues with respiratory and like dealing with even wearing a mask. So we're canceling or we're postponing all of our India retreats until the safety of the air quality is better, the conditions.
I appreciate that heads up, because next year is when we're going to try to start getting the travel.
Check the air quality first.
Sure. Yeah, that's definitely going to happen.
If you go up into the Himalayas up north, you have a better chance of, like, if you're above 3,000 elevation, 3,000 feet or above, you have a better chance of it being better quality. So if you really want to still go, check Dharamsala or Varanasi, but up anywhere that you can get up into the mountains, the Himalayas.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I definitely will. What about in nature? Have you found a place in nature that you just felt so vibed at?
Yes. I wish it was more eclectic, but it's the redwood forest in Northern California. I haven't been there recently, but I think there was a fire that went through a couple years ago. And I think it actually went through the part I used to go all the time, which was like the most, I forget the name of it. It's the most famous part where all the tourists come for this part. And those trees were so, prehistoric looking and very old. And when you're inside the redwood forest with the redwood soft padding for the pathways on the ground, you're stepping on, it's like marshmallows because it's just so much, of the debris and like over the years. And then you have the moss. So then I just felt like I'm in another planet, I'm in another world. And then you can just feel the magic in that area. It's like contained. And I would love to go into more places like that have that kind of deep forest, but huge trees. I love those giant sequoias.
Yeah, my wife lived in California for 10 years. She lived Long Beach all the way to San Jose, and she said that was one of her favorite places too. She really loved the redwood. So I want to go check that out next time we're in California, which will be February when you guys are going to the Conscious Life Expo. We're going to be there too. Yeah. So that'll be great. So the last question, and this one might be one for you because you kind of had that rough childhood too. This is the only one that's ever really had to be skipped by some people who had similar experiences. But what is your favorite childhood memory?
Oh, that's easy. I can come up with that. Okay. So this is my favorite memory. I was 5 years old. We were at Disneyland, and my dad, who was just always such an adventurer, he was so pushing the limits all the time. And so somehow or another, he found a way to go behind Disneyland in a parking lot right next to where the fireworks go off. And he put me on his shoulders, and his goal, the actual goal he had was for me to get really close to the fireworks so I could really enjoy it from up close. But what he didn't realize is that what goes up comes down. And so I was on his arm, up here on his shoulders, and I couldn't, and the loud boom of the firework went off. It was like an explosion, right? So it goes up really high above my head, and it starts coming down, and these little golden embers everywhere. And at first it was really beautiful. But then my dad was like laughing, and then he's like, I think we have to get shelter. Like we have to get out. So we hid under some sort of awning or tarp or something. And I just got such a kick out of it, even at a young age, that my dad would go to such extreme and dangerous measures so that I could experience fireworks at that level. I thought that was a very, very sweet of him.
Oh, that was.
Even try.
Oh, that is amazing. I appreciate you sharing that story. I want to give you the floor here in a minute to kind of share what things you guys have going on that you want us to know about, or how people can connect with you guys or you, or whatever you want to share. But before I do that, I want to say two things. The first thing, thank you for coming. I know you guys are busy with kids and with work and with all the other stuff. So thank you for that. And thank you guys for doing the work that you do. It's nice to see the energy that you guys share with people done in such a unique way. It's very different from a lot of the people in our community, the way they share
Right.
it, and
Right.
it's more inclusive and connected.
Yeah.
So thank you for being you and for
Thank
doing
you.
that. And the second thing I wanted to say is, after you share and we close for the night, if you wanted to hang out just for about a minute or two, I wanted to ask you a question too after the show.
Sure.
All right, perfect. So, yeah, the floor is yours. How do people connect with you? How do they find you? What do you guys have going on? Whatever you want to share, it's all you.
Okay, good. Thank you. So our website is rizmirza.com, RIZMIRZA.com. Everything is on there, including links to my sites and things, to watch me on YouTube or whatever. You can go through his main site. So my relationship right now to coaching and where we're at is I am kind of behind the scenes pushing everything to where it is right now, where it's going. And that's a lot. And so I'm not doing one-on-one sessions anymore. I was a coach for 15 years and a shaman, working side by side with big groups and individuals with him, but I'm no longer doing that actively. But I do a lot of podcasts with him on YouTube. I do my own podcasts. I've just started up again on my own YouTube channel called United Starseeds Connections. I like today's episode, I talked about how and why I left Christianity. So I went real deep into that. As far as things that are coming up, Riz has an opportunity to channel alongside his peers in the master trance channeling arena with Gaia TV in Colorado, September 23rd. And he's going to be opening and channeling 3 guides. And we're really excited about that. And then the Conscious Life Expo in February, we are speaking on Saturday night in the big room. And we are really excited about just letting loose, and let's see how many guides he wants to channel or can channel that night. Let's see how many he can fit in. We're really excited about that. Last time we totally sold out on a smaller room. So this year we're getting the bigger room, and we're really ready for that. We have a lot of podcasts that we are guests on. Also, you can find us, and there's books, and there's lots of things that you can connect to us if you're interested in doing a retreat with us. We have Egypt coming up again in February and December of next year. I wanted just a little quick PSA. Travel and tourism has changed since the pandemic, and everything now takes 6 months plus to book and to schedule. So all of our retreats we have to do way in advance. Many things are booked out, sold out in 6 months, 6 months ahead of time. So by the time we even get there, it's already sold out. So that's why we have to promote things that are far into the future. We do have a contact in Joshua Tree, because we have never been to contact in the desert as a guest, because they're not ready to let a trans channel aliens in their expo. Although we ask every year, and we can't wait for them to catch up with the technology. But okay, they still need to see proof. I get it. But it would be nice if they would start allowing trans channels to come in who do channel alien beings like yourself, to come in and speak there at Contact in the Desert. So what we did was we made our own Contact in the Desert in Joshua Tree in January. We have a retreat for the weekends. We're doing night sky watching, similar to what you're doing in Sedona, and we're bringing the what is it called, the binoculars and all the things to look, in the night sky, but also Riz will be channeling alien beings for that retreat as well. So it's all going to be around that topic.
That's
In January.
amazing.
Yeah. And then Japan is cherry blossom season, and that is almost full. We're trying to decide when to cut it off. So that one's going to be a really, really fun trip. And Japan just opened up, I think 18 months ago, maybe a year ago. They were the last country to open their doors. So we're really thrilled that we can go back. We used to go all the time with groups. So that's happening. I'm sure I could come up with more stuff, but right now that's kind of what's on the table. But yeah,
You
when
guys
we're
are
with
busy
people,
bees.
oh yeah, when we're with people, just so you know, we're exactly how you see us here. The way we talk here is exactly how we are there, and we're always guiding and helping Riz channels at all the sacred sites. And he goes into talks about all the multidimensional parts of that vortex or the site that we're in, the sacred site that we're in. So he does deep meditations and vocal, it's like these vocal clearings in the top of the pyramid, in the Great Pyramid of Giza. Everyone's up in the top floor doing these big, was it like 486 hertz something, some kind of meditative. I don't really know exactly the hertz, but he is really good at all those things. And so he brings a lot of that to these trips. And you touched upon something I wanted to just close with. I love our ancestors and our forefathers and our people who broke ground in the area of spirituality and metaphysics up until now. We are very blessed and honored that we have been able to learn from them, the greats before us. But Riz and I saw a lack, something missing in society and in our conversations about metaphysical things and psychic things. And what we saw missing was any groundedness and reality of mixing all the worlds together, mixing your day-to-day practical life together with your magical life.
Absolutely.
Because people keep it contrasted and separated because they want to make the 3D so wrong, or they want to do it in a way that is like, yeah, you guys know, I don't have to go into it. You guys understand, like there's a way that people want to live their spiritual life, but it's like they're saying they're not accepting the rest of their reality. So we make it very real. And at the same time, we're bringing in a very high level dose of psychic ability, telepathic abilities, empathic abilities, trance channeling, psychic mediumship, documented over a decade in front of hundreds and thousands of people. So this is real. And we're teaching people that it's not something to be afraid of. It's for the masses. It's for everyone. It's for people who are not subjected or used to being in these conversations. We're like a bridge, bringing it home to everybody, because it's not for just the elite. It's not for just the few and the specific. It's this conversation to elevate your communication abilities and to be able to connect at this highest level and to heal yourself should be available to everyone. And so that's what Riz and I have dedicated our lives to. And we didn't even really know we were doing that. It was kind of a happenstance. It was an accident. It was just because this is how we are. It was our truth. This is how we are every day, day in and day out, morning to night. We're like this. As you can see, this is like what we do. And so people are always really surprised that we have so many other abilities, and yet we're so like everyone else. And we always found that to be really interesting, because we were like, well, but why wouldn't you want to be yourself? Like, I don't understand. Like,
Exactly.
what don't you want your normal life to be also magical? We don't get it. Like, why do you want it separate? So we're just very innocent in this area. So I think that's been working for us, because people are responding and going, this is fun. Like, this is a different approach, like you said. So that's what people keep telling us. And we're really happy that it's working. I like that it's working, and we just keep going. We just keep going. No end in sight. We don't really have a direction in how we're doing it. All we know is that as long as we just keep helping people find their truth and their peace, eventually those people will turn around and help other people, and that will continue on and continue on. And we all do our part. And Rob, you're so gracious to be a channel yourself, and then to also host other guides, channels, psychics. It takes a big spirited person and big heart to be able to do that for others. And I just really thank you for this forum and this opportunity to talk to your listeners and the people who love your work. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. It's something my wife and I have always been passionate about, is bringing people together in our community. We're actually next year going to be starting the channel panel back up. The last one we did was 2017 in Burbank, and it was great. We had Daryl Anka and Wendy Kennedy and Lee Harris and all of the people we've gotten to know and love over the years there with us. And my wife did it on stage the first time too, which was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was great. And we're going to start it next year again too. So I think that's where our community is empowered, is through the connection to other people who are doing the same thing, so that we can get all the perspectives we can.
Absolutely.
It's really important.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for coming on too. And thank you for what
Thank you
you guys
everyone
are
for
doing.
listening. I hope somebody benefit in some way. And I just really appreciate your time, everyone.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone in our live chat was loving the conversation, loving you,
Oh,
and
great.
loving the work that you guys are doing too.
Great.
So thank you for that. And I want to let you guys know, show up here next week. Next week will be the last week that I am live on Enlightenment Evolution Hour. So join us in the live chat. We'll be here at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific, every Wednesday on the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. And the Enlightenment Evolution Hour is a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. We love you guys so much. Thank you for showing up, and we'll see you guys next week on the other side. Good night, guys.
Night.